Don't you think it's time for the city of Savannah to have an honest tourism management plan? Let SCAD start paying its fair share? And the hospitality industry needs to increase its wages? The impacts of new growth should not cost residents. All local elected officials on council and commission should have term limits. We're working hard to accomplish these policies. We need your help. Please contribute whatever you can, $5, $10, or $20, by going to bettersavannah.org. Donate. Thank you.
I appreciate our tourism community. I appreciate our hoteliers.
The following show and broadcast is a production of Better Savannah, an independent expenditure committee dedicated to better policy outcomes at the state and local level. The views, opinions, and statements made by the hosts and/or their guests do not necessarily reflect the views of Better Savannah.
John, what's going
Evening.
on, pal?
Evening.
Oh, what's up, buddy? It's episode 79 of Better
79.
Savannah's podcast. In case you missed it, we had episode 77 last week with a interview we recorded with Ann Allen Westbrook, candidate for House District 163, second time running. Was a really, really good conversation. And right after we aired that podcast, in our members only section, we had a nice little group discussion with several members and friends of the committee, Keyshawn, Suzanne, or what's her name? What was in there? Karen, Julie's Hall, just a really good discussion surrounding the conversation we had just had. So before we delve into more and more candidate interviews, I just want to kind of stop and have, a little catch up run through. I honestly, I got like 3 or 4 more stories to talk to you about that I haven't even told you yet. We just didn't have a chance to talk, but there's a lot going on. Where do you want to start, John?
Well, I want to start with the Ann Westbrook discussion,
Mm-hmm.
and I too was pleasantly gratified on her positions, particularly Chuck, with regard to local control and local issues. Uh,
Yes.
she was right on point with the view on Port Wentworth and that terrible intervention that was unnecessary by Ron Stevens. She was very clear that the mayor of Port Wentworth ran for reelection, got reelected, and then refused to go to meetings. She said this is the problem. I commend her for getting that right. I also liked the fact that she agreed and saw the importance of doing something to
Yeah,
preserve.
just for those who haven't seen it, let me just play this clip, John. From our and I'll link to the full episode. People can go back and watch it. But let's just watch this small clip about what you were saying about the weeping time.
So, would you support the preservation at some size and some level now, as opposed to 5 or 10 years from now, when it'd be much more difficult?
Yes. Okay. I'm tracking all that now. I'd like to answer in parts.
Sure.
First, the hotel motel tax. My vote would be obviously to increase it. I don't think I have to even make that sale here. I know what you really are interested in is the weeping time. And now that I understand sort of the framing, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd love to see it preserved. I don't really want to get into a discussion of the politics of city council, but I do think they are slowing this down. I think they are muddying the water.
Again, it doesn't mean that she's with us 100% on every issue, or even 100% of any one issue. But what I heard in the interview was someone who is going to hear the merits of an argument. I was telling you earlier off air, that's what I've enjoyed about. I got a little piece about Lester later. I've enjoyed working with State Senator Lester Jackson over the years, because he'd at least hear the merits of an argument and then make a decision one way or the other, right? And so I kind of got that feeling from Ann Westbrook.
No doubt, no doubt. And the context of the question was some form or some fashion of preservation. Is it necessary or not? And she says absolutely. That's good enough for me right now, Chuck, because that's hurdle number one. This city council has no plan, or county for that matter, to make that move to preserve, not develop. That's down the line, but people agree that now is the time to make that move for preservation. Anyway, the other thing that she was totally up to speed on was the whole voter roll fiasco out at Tybee, and she said, "Look, it's crazy that you got 1,400 STVR owners who are essentially part-time residents at Tybee, trying to get on the rolls and vote there to control the outcomes of city council." So, hats off to her. Those are hard questions, Chuck. Easy.
Yeah, I love that answer. And I got one more small clip to play of the interview. Just, you saw in that first clip, John, I mean, we obviously don't have her on our side on the hotel motel tax itself, but I think she understands why there's been so much opposition to it when it was framed in the context of African-American tourism expansion. Right. And there's no weeping time in it, right?
Right.
So once you put the weeping time issue to the side and she supports preserving what's left of it, I kind of understand that difference. The city's number 2 legislative priority, John, is this repeal of a big section of the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, and so I think this small clip here from this part of the interview is important, because it shows that there's some independent thinking going on. It's not just give the city whatever it asks for. Let's watch this small part here.
And say, we are going to collect more money. That is, we're going to be raising your taxes, not necessarily your millage rate, but your tax collection. And honestly, I think this is such a chicken, you know what, ask, because you ought to be able to defend.
Right. Yeah.
What your need for revenue for your budget ought to be defensible, and you ought to be able to come out and say, we're not rolling it back because we need an extra courthouse or courtroom or what have you.
I'm tracking all that now, I think. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the transparency piece of that for sure. I mean, show your work, tell people what it is, give them the chance to talk back.
And then take it anyway, because that's what they do. But at least they have to defend.
But to eliminate your citizens' right to come point.
Yeah,
just a great clip, John. That's
Chuck.
That's the mayor of Savannah. That's one of his top priorities is to repeal that part. And it's just like, look, that's not. I don't agree with it. I'm not going to do that. I think that's a key distinction. People need to be able to show that they'll disagree with other politicians.
Yeah. Listen, we're only a couple of months away from the digest.
Yep.
And we've been telling people ever since, I don't know how long ago we interviewed Jerry Tolbert, but since we're both involved in the real estate market, we know firsthand what the market's done. And most people have a feeling as well. And this is going to be the biggest windfall to the city budgets in 25 years.
Right.
Double-digit digest growth in a single year.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think Van wanted to get out from under the responsibility of having to hold those meetings and keep the overage, the increase in value and tax load without having to stand tall on it, which I thought was, the word I used last week, but it's going to be an interesting development when that digest comes out and the city starts work on its budget this year.
Right. Absolutely. I think it's going to be one of the most important votes the council takes. I want to come back to Tybee Island because you mentioned it in Ann's interview. And we're doing a little bit of picking on Savannah Morning News like we always do, on tonight's show. Because I told you after you got interviewed, I said, they're going to hold that story. They're going to hold that story until it's right, to time it. So yesterday on the 30th, Nancy Guan's 1,500-word piece, very large article, headline, Tybee residents challenge island's voter rolls. Georgia Secretary of State investigating. So this is finally the news, the local mainstream media catching up to what you and I and many others have already known and have been openly talking about since February, So, the Savannah Morning News operates a lot like the old Wells Fargo, it's by horse and buggy. So it may get to you in several weeks.
Yeah, I do want to tell you, I emailed the reporter, Nancy Guan,
yes.
and I made two observations to her that I thanked her for the reporting, but I expressed myself and said there's two things that I think are deficient in your reporting on it. And Chuck, she went and made an update to the article online to include one of those two observations, and that helped a lot. So,
what were those two observations that you sent to her?
Well, okay, it's a little wonky, but here we go. She reported in the original piece, the original story, that the census showed there were 3,000 residents at Tybee.
Okay.
And that the voter list was 3,100 people. Now, to the average reader, that's within 5%. That's not
right.
I don't see a huge issue there.
Here's your letter.
But, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth of the matter is that census counted all people, whether they were complete or not. And in any given community, somewhere between 15 and 20% of the census population are 17 or under. So
Right.
they're not even legally able to vote. So we're not really
Right.
speaking
Right.
truth to power, if you will, by saying, oh, there's 3,000 people. People go, okay, voters. 3,100 voter list. Oh, not what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is when you take out the 17 and under population, that brings you down to about 2,600 people. Okay. And then the other issue is I don't know of any community of 3,000 or more that has
Or
100.
any size.
Well, I mean, okay, any size. The point is, nobody gets to 100% registration of the adult aged citizens who are eligible to vote. So,
Right.
give them a 90%, give them a really high registration percentage, back that number into the 2,600, 90% of that, you're talking about barely 2,500 voters. I mean, realistically, that would be, an A+ outcome.
Right. Right.
And now go back to the 3,100 active voters. Forget the 400 inactive voters that are still on the rolls. And you have a little different handle on the situation. Now you go, oh, 3,000 census, 3,100 registered voters. What's the big effing deal? Well, the real deal is there ought to be about 2,400 registered voters, and we got 3,100. So that's a big deal. And I explained that in my email of thanks and observation to Nancy, and she included that. The other thing, and just to put a tack in this, she did not cover this, but I said, Nancy, please understand that the Article 9, Section 2 constitutional right of every citizen in the state of Georgia to seek change through a petition process that generates a referendum if the petition drive is successful is based on the voter rolls.
Correct.
So as long as you have an engrossed, fat, out of sync voter list, the threshold to get the number of signatures to exercise your
It's wrong. It's wrong.
It's too steep. It's like a poll tax or having to count the number of jelly beans in a freaking jar.
It dilutes.
It creates an untenable bar that is not fair or equal. So
John, Savannah Morning News has a history of doing this. You got this big 1,500 word article talking about the problem at Tybee, published March 30th and out today, but also on the same paper today, John, published today, 31st. Same reporter, Nancy Guan, headline, Tybee Island successfully challenges 9 registered voters at Board of Registrars. Right?
Yeah.
So,
where are you going with that, Chuck?
This is kabuki theater, man.
Well, it's
I named the title of the episode Sunshine at the Beach because you see what a little bit of sunshine does? Just a little bit of sunshine on these problems with this voter roll and just a tap on the shoulder to the Secretary of State's investigative unit. And all of a sudden, we got more challenges from Tybee Island for their voter rolls than we've had in the last 3 years.
Well, successful challenges, Chuck.
Correct. That's what I mean.
They've made lame challenges that were
right, but this is 12 successful challenges.
There's another 3. Let's just set the table correctly. This is the start, and it's a little tiny appetizer, but there are 300 or 350 more people that have to be challenged.
Oh yeah,
you got double homesteads,
right?
They live in another state, just vacation here in their STDR, a week or two a year. I mean, those people should not be voting in local elections, deciding who's going to set policy for the community when they're only here 1 week out of 52. It's
Right.
absurd, and it's it's a rich industry that's being propped up and cajoled by Joe Marinelli and Visit Tybee, which is really Visit.
Absolutely.
So anyway, I am gratified, and
Are you happy with where that's at? Because I don't know if our viewers know. John, tell people how many hours you and a group of citizens put in for that study of data.
There was a group of 5 people, 3 Islanders and 1 from Wilmington Island and me from downtown.
Right.
You got to be an elector to have some standing in this conversation, and
sure,
of course, not an elector. But we spent over 200 hours auditing the 1,300 people who cast ballots just 5 months ago in November. Now, Nancy did get this wrong in her story, but I don't fault her for it. She said that we found 120 irregular voters out of the 1,300 that cast votes. She just did not understand me correctly. It's probably my fault. But I told her that's 700. After 700, we were burnt out. We had crossed the Rubicon. We had more than 50% checked. So
sure.
There. So correctly, her article should have said that this ambitious group of residents and their friends found 120 irregular votes out of 700 voters who voted in the last election. If we had gone through the other 600, I think we'd be almost at 200. And that's a huge number for an election that only 1,300 votes were cast.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I would love for the Secretary of State's office to say, "Man, you got to have another election. We're not accepting these results."
You know, John. Here's the thing. I think more than that, I'd like to know what the real story is. Is the story that residents themselves and non-residents who own property, because they heard of the pending moratorium on STVR certificates, was this a natural revolting of property owners that happened spontaneously in reaction to government? Or was this a coordinated, planned, centralized campaign amongst a select group of people? Because I think, John, I think you're right. I think it is a bit of both. But I think whatever way it leans, I think there's a different outcome here. Okay? If the majority of the irregular voters, the irregularities that are found in the investigation, if the majority of those irregularities are just people who innocently, individually didn't know what they were doing, or were trying to protect their property rights and thought what they were doing was legal.
They did.
Right?
I think a lot of them did.
I agree with you. Okay.
But it wasn't.
Right? It wasn't legal, but they thought it was. If that's the answer to this question, then I don't think there's going to be too harsh of a penalty to pay from the state. But I think if there's an uncovering of a central group of, say, a dozen people who reached out and touched 120 people to illegally register and tip this election.
Yeah.
I think not only could a new election be ordered, there could be some really steep criminal penalties faced at some point or another.
Well,
right. This is fraud. This is criminal fraud, and that election law 202, there's more election laws on the books or in the legislature now. They want GBI to have first right to investigate this stuff going forward.
Yeah, Chuck, the timing of our project was inauspicious because there's so much residual Trump stupidity out there about
election fraud and
stop
the steal.
Yeah. And we have been very, very purposeful in saying we're not on that freaking train. Okay, we're only looking at this Tybee election and what transpired, and we don't have the skills or the subpoena power or the data, criminal database, interstate databases to take our study any further. And we expressed that to the Secretary of State. We said, this is how far we were able to take it. We can't see any way to take it any further. We hope that you will see our cursory findings and help us by taking a deeper look at it. And they have opened, it's
a formal investigation. It's confirmed in the public reporting. Yeah,
6 weeks. A criminal investigation has been underway, and they won't say a word about it, except that it's ongoing, and it's going to take at least 2 more months to conclude and submit to the Secretary of State and the Attorney General, for prosecution. So it might be too late to call for a new election. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if the clerk of Tybee and Colin McRae start approving these challenges like they just did rapidly.
A little bit of sunshine. A little bit of sunshine gets the grease moving in the wheels of government, John. That's what I've learned. That's what I learned from this Tybee thing. A little bit of sunshine, wheels on the bus go round and round. All right.
Yeah.
I wanna highlight friend, of the committee, friend of the show, previous guest, Jim Marikis, who just wrote this absolutely awesome editorial the other day. So I won't read the entire thing, but it's at the Savannian. It's a free article. I'll post the link in the chat here for everybody. Please support them. It's $5 a month for really quality, nonprofit, independent journalism. But the headline is "Dredging Up the Truth About the Harbor Deepening." As controversial projects mark completion, misunderstandings about it continue. And, he goes about it in the opening line here. But, basically, he doesn't like to comment on other journalists locally unless it's important. But I couldn't resist calling attention to the inanities in a recent piece from our old friend, John Adam Van Brimmer, in the Savannah Morning News on the completion of the latest round of Port of Savannah Harbor deepening by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. All right. He goes on, to say that it's in my DNA. It's in the DNA of any mainstream daily paper to be a booster for whatever is the local flavor of predatory capitalism. And in the case of the Port of Savannah, what I mean by predatory capitalism is the fact that our port is largely extracted profit for the benefit of any number of multinational corporations dependent on Chinese imports. Imports and exports, of course. I just thought it was a great article, editorial by our friend Jim Marikis. It's not just the predatory capitalism. It's what he says in the next article. Savannah itself gets some warehouse jobs and support jobs, all of which are increasingly automated, in exchange for massive ecosystem disruption and congested levels of 18-wheeler traffic that swaths of West Chatham County have been designed specifically to accommodate. What was that line we've been hearing about West Chatham County lately? What are they calling it out there? Remember?
Little Atlanta.
Little Atlanta, because of all the truck traffic. All right.
And the growth. I mean, what's happened in Savannah, and maybe we'll be talking about this later, but, look at the changes to Dietrich's district.
Sure.
They're huge. And,
yes.
And the displacement of long-term residents here to more affordable places is the result, of a bunch of things, mostly SCAD gentrification, buying up building after building after building and creating new ones. And the rental market is just insane. But, Dietrich's district is probably majority white now and affluent and new. They're people that there's a good hunk of people that just arrived here in the last couple of years.
Right. So, I love this. Let me read this line here. I love this piece, this part in the main of the body. But he follows up with the wildly, almost laughably misleading statement that, quote, the deepening was hardly disruptive. The actual digging dates only from 2015, and the work zone is offshore and underwater. Where do you even start with that? Asked Jim. A lot of nonsense to unpack. First, as a bit of background, it's important to know that the current, just completed round of harbor deepening takes the channel to 47 feet deep. You and I already knew that, right?
Yep.
When James Oglethorpe founded Savannah, the average depth of the Savannah River was 18 feet. Okay? Yep. So just look at the amount of feet we've gone in 250 years, right? Jim goes on to say, deepening, what we've done to the Savannah River Channel is not only not hardly disruptive, but by definition disruptive in the extreme, right? So I mean, he goes into some wonky stuff about surplus depth and other ecological disasters associated with dredging, but suffice to say, I couldn't help but notice a nice shot across the bow at the paper of record in town here.
Indeed.
John, when we talk about the winners taking all in Savannah, I mean, the port is probably the biggest behemoth of them all.
I would say so.
The port, with its extension of jobs that it supports, John, I mean, you're talking about a $30 to $50 billion enterprise. With all due respect to SCAD's 1.4 billion or whatever they're at, this is a real behemoth of an entity.
Yeah, I'd put tourism in there. Those are the three big prongs of the Cyclops that exists in our community, and we really don't think a whole lot about because we're too busy doing task forces and busy work with stakeholders as distractions. But maybe in the next generation.
Let me read this part of the article, Jim. This will blow your mind. He said so Jim's talking further about the current increasing its speed because of the amount of dredging over the years.
Yeah.
He said that when you drive a piling into the channel off Hutchinson Island to build a dock facility, the massive water pressure from the swiftly rushing deep in Savannah River would literally suck the piling vertically completely down into the mud. And from there, the river would pull the piling out from the submerged riverbank and from there out to sea. He told me they would drag pilings on Hutchinson Island and find them a day or two later bobbing around in the Atlantic Ocean. The fact that Van Brimmer blithely writes off the collective impact as irrelevant because it's offshore and underwater is just jaw-dropping. It would read like intentional satire if one didn't know better. I freaking love that line, Jim. That's a really good, really great line. Just some really great stuff, because, Van Brimmer's article, I didn't even read because I knew it was just going to be a puff piece.
Yeah.
I mean, I just kind of had already read it. So we'll stick those in. You guys let us know what you think about those articles. But, I thought that they were, at the very least, somewhat entertaining.
Good work from the Savannah.
Absolutely. Please go support them. Just like we asked you to support ATR and their shows, especially the Rabble on Wednesdays and the Watchdogs on Saturdays, where they talk the most local politics. Candidly Keisha on Mondays. Tell It Like It Is on Fridays with Jay Jones. Pastor Small on Saturday, and Alicia Billard Blakely on Tuesdays. So let me pull up, John, our next story here, because before our interview with Ann Westbrook, if you'll recall, our last episode, or maybe 2 episodes ago, we talked about a certain alderwoman who dragged out a lot of resources for some seafood.
Yeah.
You remember what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
So, this week we got a new one, and it's Alderman Dietrich Leggett's trash from the 2nd District.
It's a dumpster gate.
Yeah, right here. I put this up at the top of the show.
Those are agenda binders from multiple meetings.
So for those of you who don't know, every alderman gets a big agenda binder like this. And let me take this down for a second, John.
Okay.
John, you were on county commission in Chatham County for a couple years, right?
Yep.
Okay, you guys did the same thing, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So tell our viewers and listeners, these are big, like thick 1.5 to 2.5 inch binders, right? Tell our viewers what's in them.
Well, they're actually 3 or 4 inch binders, but it has all the agenda items, the consent agenda, the formality agenda, the awards, the purchasing review, and SPLOST updates on projects with change orders. So it's really put out by the manager, the city or county manager, and this is what the chairman opens the meeting with, and the Pledge of Allegiance and prayer, and then we go into the agenda proper. So it's really a roadmap and all the nuances that you could hope for on items that are going to be policy items that are going to be voted on. So is that what you wanted to know, Chuck? What it is? It's a blueprint or roadmap for.
But it's the most detailed version. It's not the same. It's not the same agenda I'd pull up like this agenda for the city of Savannah, right?
No,
it's all of the supporting I can still access them, but I have to click around. That's all the supporting documents, in one location, right? So this is from Curtis Bellinot. He's a local property guy in town, fan of the show. Doesn't agree with everything with us, but he is an equal critic of our local government. So here's his Facebook post from yesterday. Hey, Dietrich Leggett, do you want to come get your illegally dumped trash out of my dumpster? I expect this level of trash from Lion Nick, tagged Alderman Nick Palumbo, or the mayor, and the rest of the city Savannah government, but not you, right? And, trash. And John, we just hired 28 full-time equivalent positions in the budget for sanitation this year, right?
Yeah.
And illegal dumping is a crime, right? Like if you have a dumpster on a property, I can't just come to your house and dump my trash in your rented dumpster. That's not illegal, right?
If I'm paying for the dumpster, it's mine.
Correct.
Now I want to go in a little different direction on this, Chuck.
Let's hear it. What's your direction?
Well, judging by the number of binders that were shown in the photo, and I imagine there's more outside the frame, there is probably 8 to 12 reams of paper.
Oh yeah, this looks like 6 to 12 months of meetings.
Well, whether it's 2 months, which would be 4 or 5 meetings, or longer. My point is, that's a lot of paper that belongs in the recycling, and we pay for that. It's a centerpiece of city policy that I was happy to play a role in back in 2008.
Right.
Otis Johnson, when he goes out on the stump and talks, frequently, Chuck, points to the recycling program that initiated under his administration.
Right.
As a good example of how Savannah has come to the table and adopted a best practice. Here you have a city alderman who enjoys the benefits of that important piece of public policy, just disregarding it and trashing, not recycling, but adding to the landfill, 8, 10, 12, 14 reams of paper just in this one dump. I think it's reprehensible.
Well, I'm blocked from our pal Dietrich, but I don't think you are. And Dietrich's cover photo says Shauna says it all. Leadership is not a position or a title. It is action and example. Well said, Alderman Dietrich Leggett. By the way, Alderman Dietrich Leggett, could you take Alderman Dietrich Leggett's advice and be a better example and maybe dispose of your materials a little bit better than illegally dumping them? That's kind of this week's like WTF moment, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't anybody that's out there that wants to say we're nitpicking on this, F you. We're not. This is the person you elected, disregarding best practices and environmental.
This guy got 65% of the vote against Bill Durrance, guys.
Yeah. So anyway, what else you got?
John, we haven't heard really much of anything from Port Wentworth lately. And I think it's a situation where no news is good news.
It's, yeah. And this is what we discussed, Chuck, and we had hoped.
Sure.
City Council, Gabrielle would come back from maternity.
She's back now.
She's back. I watched 15, 20 minutes of their last meeting.
All of them were in attendance.
It was professional. It was polite. It was significant. It looked like a city council functioning quite well. So this crazy Ron Stevens atomic bomb of we're gonna squash your charter and
if you go back to a month ago, episode 73, 74, 75, we were really concerned about a coup, basically.
Yeah, we never understood where Ron was going to get the votes for it, and I said from the jump, Chuck, that this was all smoke, saber rattling, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
I couldn't see Edna or Derek Mallow or Carl Gilliard going along with the insanity of trying to punish Fort Wentworth for a democratic election that no one questioned its fairness or integrity, and just because the wrong people lost, they're going to be paternalistic and step in. That's why that's why I was so gratified to hear from Ann Westbrook, who said, "Man, what's the matter with those people? They lost,
sure,
and now they don't want to play ball, and
right.
You want to reward them and punish the citizens? I don't think so."
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
well, I got some pump it or dump it, but I don't have much else. What do you got? Anything else you want to talk about?
Well,
we could talk about how, Brian Kemp appointed Sonny Perdue as head of the chancellor of the university system to get back at his cousin for running for him.
Well,
there's a good contributor piece about that from David Kyler.
You and I have talked a little bit offline, people aren't aware of, about Jay Jones's run against Ben Watson. And
yes,
second on that, I think it would be time well spent. I took a look at that map, Chuck.
It's changed.
It has changed, man. Jay has a real chance at bettering Watson, and I would love to see Jay get in there. So
I
want people to start, put your antenna up and start paying attention.
Well, you know what, John? You're kind of spoiling some of the pump it or dump it, man. Let's get to it, huh?
Okay.
I guess. All right. It's been a while. Let me find the video clip. Where did I? Now I lost the damn video clip, John. There it is.
I love
your
that.
Greatest 10 seconds of video editing ever, pal. All right, John, pump it or dump it. Pump or dump that City of Savannah will sell the Civic Center as it is or its lot to either Paula Wallace or Richard Kessler.
Holy smokes!
It's got to be one or the other, right?
Well, yeah.
Specifically Paula. But
Yeah,
Pumper Dump, you got the Oglethorpe House right across from the Civic Center, right? Pumper Dump that the City of Savannah will sell the Civic Center to SCAD.
Dump it. I would hate to see that happen. And by the way, I heard yesterday from reliable sources, Kessler has sold the mansion on Drayton Street. So I don't know what's behind that move, but
maybe you can pay your bond off to us early, pal.
Yeah, there you go. I hope they restore the square that was lost, and they create more neighborhood with density. Satisfy the density fans that are out there. I think they can do it with retail on the ground floor and residential above. The historic district is being so changed and inundated with tourism. The more residential backstopping we can do, that's what we should be doing right now, Chuck, because it's being hollowed out by short-term vacation rental conversions and tourists. So I hope it becomes a neighborhood built around a square or two. So I say dump selling it to SCAD. It'll become.
Well, I agree with you. Dump it, but I will tell you, I think that's exactly what's going to happen. They're going to sell it to them, and I think Paula Wallace and her friends are going to be all over the disclosures for re-election bids of councilmen who vote for it. Let's do another one. Sorry, I cut you off. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, if prologue is passed, it'll be bought by a
shell company.
Yeah. So we're on to you, SCAD, and you really are. I posted this in someone's thread that was talking about the 14-story apartment building that SCAD's gotten magical approval to do with no impact fees. But I said, listen, you need to understand, SCAD is no longer just an art college. It is a real estate investment corporation.
That happens to have in our school.
It happened. Thank you. So, okay, exactly. What do you got on the
next one? All right, Pumper Dump. The likelihood that SCAD is going to close on the Salvation property on Montgomery Street. This is the likelihood this is going to happen. I predict they're going to close on the Montgomery Street property in the next 12 months.
Is it for sale? Is it listed?
It's not for sale, but I mean, John, let's face it. The Weeping Time Coalition's lawsuit is going to find its ending somewhere in the court system here, probably soon. Right. Once there's no more avenue for this, legally, they're going to break ground. They're going to build it. Once they build it, they're not going to really need that Montgomery Street location as much. They're going to sell it.
I am so tired of being right. It's nauseating.
I know.
We said from the jump that the whole relocation of Salvation Army was to facilitate getting rid of less desirable, victims of, society and addiction and all the things that go along with a transitional center. That was just not. Paula Wallace did not want that environment next to her environment, and that relocating it was her plan.
Sure.
So we'll see. Even if you remember, we talked to Bukovic in a Zoom call, and we asked him straight up, dude, do you have any interest? Does the college have any interest in the Salvation Army property on Montgomery Street that's getting moved? And he said, no, not at this time.
Not at this time, John.
Mizo.
Not at this time. Let's do another one. All right. Pump or dump the likelihood that Clinton Cowart gets enough signatures to get on the ballot against Edna Jackson as a Libertarian candidate for State House in November. He has until June 5th to turn the signatures in, I believe. You think there's no way he's going to get there?
There's no way he's going to get there.
Yeah. I'd like to see him get there just so there's a race. You know? Like, I respect Mayor Jackson. I really do. You know, she gave us a wonderful interview.
This is
No, I know, but I want to see her have, you know, an opponent that she can beat and have a debate against and beat on the merits and stuff. You know,
we both believe Better Savannah maintains every incumbent should have to defend their record.
Sure.
And if she doesn't get the challenge, that's a shame. But do I think specifically Clinton Cowart is going to generate? How many signatures does he need? Like 1,000?
At least, probably closer to 1,600.
Yeah,
it's a lot of people.
Having a little experience, Chuck, and
I know that's why I asked. That's why I wanted to ask you the question, John. You've collected signatures before. How hard is it?
It's hard. It's easy to go to jail over it, but particularly when Karen Handel teams up with Helen.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I don't even think Raffensperger's nearly as bad as Handel.
I wonder if you have a file on me up there, Secretary. They must.
Hey, it's like the FBI, you know. Everybody's got an FBI file, you know. So
a state file.
Absolutely. GBI file, Georgia Bureau of Investigation, maybe. I don't know, one or the other. We're persons of interest according to Facebook security.
Yeah, right.
You know, gotta keep it secure.
You got another pump it or dump it?
Yeah, I got another one. Let's do it. All right, John. Last one.
Okay.
All right. Pump or dump stock photography and campaign photos and literature. Oh, wrong one. Where is that other one at? Do I have to add it?
It's the kids with the books.
No, I know. I got it. I forgot to add it. Here it is.
Okay.
It's coming. It's uploading. Let me redo everything one more time here. All right, pump or dump stock photography and campaign literature, John.
Yeah. Okay. Again, dump it, and let me go way out in front and say, I'm just having a little fun with Roger. I know Roger. I've known him for 25 years. He is a lovely, lovely man. I'm anxious to have him come on the show and talk about his candidacy and his thoughts on the issues.
Sure.
I understand from you that we've made contact with his campaign organization.
We're working on it. Yeah.
They're we're just ironing out a few details, and we expect to, invite and have Roger on the show. But being a retired advertising guy and graphics, I can spot stock photography pretty easily, Chuck. I just have done too many ads to, not know the difference. And when I was scrolling through trying to get some facts about Roger, one thing that's interesting on his Facebook page, Chuck, he's only got 7 or 8 posts, and he doesn't reply to people. I think he's got one reply.
Really?
Yeah, it's really, really curious. I mean, you go to all the effort to do the Facebook social media outreach, and you get people that come up and go, "God, I love you, Roger. What's your feeling about this?" And you get nothing. So just a little observation. We want to give Roger the chance to talk about his platform, talk about what's important to him, where he thinks he's different from the other candidates, Rhodes and Taisha Whiteley.
Yeah, and we're gonna watch them on April 12th at the Armstrong Center.
We sure are. We appreciate Ned Renalucci.
We're gonna watch it. Yeah, Ned Renalucci, Georgia Southern, putting it off there. I think this is what you're talking about here.
Yeah, I mean, try to find a response.
Not a lot Not a lot of responses.
There is with Nick Palumbo.
Oh yeah. Of course, man. Close those ranks, those Ardsley Park ranks, baby.
The Oracle.
Oh God, the Oracle of Ardsley. The dapper dog walker. All right. Well, I don't know. That's about all I got. You got anything else for us tonight, John?
Well, as always, I want to pump the train wrecks for letting us use.
Absolutely. Thank you for letting us use
their Song for Sally. I think they've got their first live concert coming up next week at Victory North, if I'm not mistaken. Please support the train wrecks. Local band, a lot of soul, great people.
Absolutely.
Other than that, Chuck, that's it.
Already shouted out the other platforms. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going tomorrow. My son Taylor is picking me up at noon, and we're going to Florida to watch a spring training game between the Braves and the Yankees.
Wow.
On Saturday.
Well,
so
at least you don't have to see Freddie Freeman in another uniform.
Oh God. Yeah.
What did he get? 128 million from the Dodgers?
Yeah. Well, my parents had seats when Dodger Stadium, Chavez Ravine first opened in 1961.
Wow.
So,
way to date yourself there, pal.
Yeah. Well, I was all 8 years old, but yeah, I love the Dodgers. I grew up with the Dodgers. Freddie going to the Dodgers is, mixed emotion.
It's a tough one.
Yeah,
man.
Yeah, but at least he's
one
doing
right
the job.
there. That's a tough one. All right, well, we'll be back with some school board candidates, some state senate candidates, a hodgepodge of other candidates. Lots of stuff coming up before Election Day. On the bottom of your screen, if you're watching this video, is there a way you can join us and support our content? Or our path to, electing candidates that, want to have a better, more progressive policy outcome. You can go to www.bettersavannah.org or to patreon.com/BetterSavannah. You'll get access to bonus content like the reaction video we did to Ann Westbrook's interview with several of our members. We had just a really great membership discussion on Thursday evening last week after we premiered the Ann Westbrook interview. I got a dog asking me to go for a walk, so that's all I got for you guys this week. Right. Appreciate it. We'll see you very soon. Thanks for joining me, John.
Got it.